Hello all, Dan here. Welcome back to another Proguides Pro Guide. Do you like chilling out in position 5 while still getting double-digit kills? If you don't already, you will by the end of this. Here's a guide on Witch Doctor by Vinny, our author. Yes, a video game writer, much to the dishonor of his engineer father. You know, I had dreams of winning an Oscar, but hey, here I am, making guides about Witch Doctor until I get a better offer. But first, our question of the day. Do you want to go pro in Dota? Is that a goal of yours, or do you just play for fun? I play for fun and voice lines. So, what's going on with Witch Doctor? Is he good? Was he robbed of winning the Arcana vote? Yes and yes. We finally could have seen real Witch Doctor lore. Does Jamaica exist in the Dota universe? Now we may never know. Anyway, you'd be hard-pressed to find another support who is both so aggressive and defensive at the same time. This is the support for those who like supporting and those who don't. Witch Doctor is for the people. On position 5, you can have the highest impact if you add both healing and damage together. Let that sink in. That's not normal, but it will be your new normal if you master Witch Doctor. This doctor, to be exact. Paralyzing Cask is Witch Doctor's stun, and what a unique one it is. Cask is a fire and forget single target spell that bounces 2, scaling up to 8 times, so 3 to 9 total hits. Cask randomly searches 575 distance for a bounce target. The next target is determined 0.3 seconds after a hit. Cask cannot be disjointed regardless of how far you move away once it has chosen you as the next target. It only ends when it hits 9 times or there is nothing in range to bounce to. It travels at 1000 move speed. This skill is always at least situationally devastating, but in lower MMR, it's downright OP. Any good opponent will start to Delta split apart when they see Witch Doctor winding this up. If you're still trying to escape the trench and people don't play around this, easiest support to climb with in the trench, hands down. As the Witch Doctor player in lane, this must be saved for opportune moments. Otherwise, it's just 50 magic damage and a 1-second stun if we don't get a bounce back. That's terrible. But if we get a bounce, 100 damage, 2-second stun with only 1 skill point. Now that's value. Look to take any 50-50 or better. By that, we mean only throw Cask in the lane when there's at least a 50% chance for it to hit twice. So if there's 2 creeps left in a wave and 1 enemy around, go for it. In a perfect world, we can cast it when there's only the range creep and a hero around. This secures the range creep and hits the opponent twice. Truly insane value. Again, good players will play around this, so it's not too often you can get the range creep and double hit against immortals. But for everyone else, this move has got to be the best thing you can do with only 80 mana. In late game teamfights, you can let this go right away so you can cast a second one sooner. As always, play it by ear. If there is one person separated and their team is coming, you can save it because clumped up groups is exactly what we're looking for with this spell. Lastly, Cask is underrated as a farming tool. While the damage doesn't scale against heroes, it does against creeps. Super weird and the only spell that does this, but in summary, once you have it maxed, hit the range creep once and cast it. Then focus on the melee creeps. Another weird exception is this stuns for 5 seconds instead of 1 when used against creeps and illusions. This makes it easier to farm neutrals or ruin CK's life. Poor CK, as if he needed one more counter. Voodoo Restoration is why Vinny is number 12 Witch Doctor on Open Dota. Just use this spell and win more as Witch Doctor. Never turn it off in fights. Let's do some very realistic math for a 10-second fight. Witch Doctor heals himself and 2 other heroes with Voodoo for that whole fight. 40 healing per second. That's 1200 HP for a 10-second fight. And 10 seconds is very short. They are usually longer. With sufficient mana and proper usage, you'll pull off Oracle levels of healing. The thing is though, the healing stat does not deduct the damage Oracle does to his own team. Translation, you can heal more than Oracle. Even at Immortal, it's super common to see doctors not get the full usage out of this. Just turn it on and never turn it off in a fight. I mean, yeah, obviously if you know you'll run out of mana to Cask, then you can turn it off, but it's so crucial to develop the habit of instantly turning this on in fights. Don't overthink, just heal. This is your most reliable spell. Use it to keep your creeps alive when pushing, use it when walking into fog, use it early and often. This is your only spell that cannot be played around by good enemies. Wait till you see our item build, then you'll understand how much we rely on Voodoo Restoration. Maledict makes a big mess. Impossible not to love this ability. It's the quote, "Cool guys don't look at explosions" in Dota spell form. There's a lot of misinformation regarding Maledict and a lot of suboptimal uses we see in pubs, so let's discuss how to use it. This is the skill that makes you a killing machine. It deals damage based on how much damage the target has taken during Maledict. Maledict does count its own damage in the calculation. It lasts for 12 seconds and does its burst damage every 4 seconds for a total of 3 bursts. The first burst does therefore increase the damage of the second burst, and so forth. The biggest takeaway here is that you should always try to use this as early as possible, and during lane, you should always be the one starting kills. So for example, you go Cask, hit Maledict during that stun, then your Sven follows up with his stun. Even if Sven stuns first, then all that damage is not accounted for by Maledict. In order to master Witch Doctor, you must practice hitting freehand Maledicts with no setup. I recommend against quick cast for this one. In lane, we should almost always be able to hit the cast target, but come mid-game, that is no longer so realistic. You'd be surprised how little damage you need to do to kill a maledicted target. 99% of the time, you should use this before ulting because it is reliable, unlike your ult, and frequently does more damage. When someone is hit with Maledict in lane, do anything possible to keep getting in hits on that target because it's kind of like a delayed double damage rune. Death Ward is our channeled single target ultimate. It has 600 cast range and 700 attack range. Pro tip number 1, this gives vision, so casting it uphill or in trees can be a big play. Pro tip number 2, you can control who the ward attacks. This is so crucial in teamfights, especially against illusions. Select the ward manually or with a hotkey, and right-click a new target if you start hitting the full HP tank instead of the low carry. Also worth knowing, the Death Ward is a separate unit and therefore does not reflect Blade Mail, nor is it boosted by Spell Amp. The damage output is very high, and keeping track of cancels in order to get off a big Death Ward is a must. Do use this for solo kills, the cooldown is only 80. This is the primary skill build, and you'll have success with it every game. As always, there are a few deviations possible, but you cannot go wrong with this one. Maledict is our most devastating and reliable spell. Any Witch Doctor player knows the joy of getting kills 10 seconds later on an enemy who left with a whole 40% HP but still dies. Just make sure you're landing all your Maledicts, or else that's 4 skill points down the drain. Heal is leveled at 8. Many choose to wait until level 11 for this, but when you need it, you need it. By level 8 on support, the laning stage is over and skirmishing has begun. This AoE heal can very likely turn the tides of a battle more so than an additional point in Cask would. The main and arguably only good change you can make to this build is taking heal at level 1 or 2 if you have a passive carry. Witch Doctor does prefer to lane with killers, but if you have absolutely no kill potential because your carry is TB laning against Abaddon, then sure, let's take heal early with the goal of safely farming in mind. Don't take multiple points in heal early because the heal to mana efficiency does not improve at all. As for talents, we're going Armor, Maledict AoE, Maledict damage, and heal percent. All the talents are viable though. Vinny actually goes for the Cask bounce at 15 more often since it's better for pushing waves and has a lot of practice landing Maledict at its default size. Of course, if you're going Ags, you'll want to heavily favor the Death Ward talents at 20 and 25. You have 3 distinct paths to consider when itemizing Witch Doctor. The one we're featuring predominantly is the Combat Medic build, which focuses entirely on resilience and healing. The other 2 options are Poverty Doctor for when you're having a terrible game, and the Malpractitioner build for when your team needs more damage and it's a great game for Death Ward. We have a bunch of regen to pull to mid and some basic stats. Nothing too cool here. We get a good bit of trading power from these items while still affording salve. It's so important to have a salve for your carry, especially when you're as aggressive as Witch Doctor. There will be a lot of kill attempts coming from your lane, and someone is going to need to be healed up after getting the kill, or else the enemy TP's back full health, full mana, and someone has to cower under the T1 because their support bought Wind Lace instead of more regen. Rant over. We aren't starting with any mana regen, so it's imperative you hit your spells as we talked about earlier. Never just throw a Cask into the wind. Use it when your carry is ready to follow up, and it has at least a 50% chance of bouncing back. For early game, we're going Headdress for the eventual mech and to heal without spending any mana. If you're absolutely crushing it, then you can skip this for Urn Rush. Urn is amazing with Maledict. Typically, Urn deals 150 damage, but with a max level Maledict, it ends up dealing about 400 damage. It's shocking that players buy more Tranquils and Ether lenses than Urns on Witch Doctor. Not only is Witch Doctor the best aggressive Urn user, but it perfectly matches the goal of our Combat Medic build. Should go without saying by now, but we have Boots, Wand, Wards here as well. Our first core item is Arcane Boots. We strongly advise against Tranquils on Witch Doctor because more mana means more heals. Besides, we're a selfless combat medic. Forget our own HP regen. I care so much more about giving our allies mana and heals. If you don't think Witch Doctor has extreme mana issues, it's only because you're not using heal enough. In conclusion, don't buy Tranquils. Then we're looking at Mech for even more healing, and Glimmer to escape, save allies, and pull off better ultis. So, for late game, naturally we have Greaves since we already bought Arcanes and Mech. Also, we have, what's this item? I have never seen it before in my life. Holy Locket? Yes, we're seriously buying a Holy Locket. This is the only legitimate use of Locket in the game. Maybe support Dazzle can do it too, but most pros play Dazzle as core. Locket gives us a boatload of mana to leave heal running, and the passive increases the voodoo heal per second from 40 to 54. If we reach level 25 talent with Holy Locket, I can as good as guarantee anyone around you will never die to damage over time again. Strong meta heroes like Underlord and Venomancer get completely neutralized. The only fully standard item was Glimmer, and admittedly, the build requires a lot of farm for position 5. It's totally possible though, since Witch Doctor gets so many kills and almost always wins lane. But hey, stuff happens. What if we're having a terrible game? In that case, we're not living for very long to use many spells, so consider Tread since it's the cheapest way to get 200 HP. Then get whatever survival item you think you need the most, Ghost, Glimmer, or Force. While farm is great to have, it's not required. You can operate effectively with one item. You just are going to be doing most of your healing in between fights or for heroes in the back line. Don't recklessly charge to the front lines to heal if you're having a bad game. The last option is the Malpractitioner Death Ward build. Get the standard boots, wand, windlace, and if you're fully committed, just go Shadow Amulet, no boot upgrade or anything. Shadow Amulet doesn't even cost mana to activate, whereas Glimmer does. From there, go Ags, BKB, and Blink or Ether Lens. This build also requires a lot of farm, but unlike the Combat Medic, it doesn't have earlier power spikes and relies on some big completed items. Combat Medic farms through virtue of winning fights, where this build relies on perfect positioning and accounting for enemy spell usage to determine the perfect time to ult. The late game payoff is unmatched for a support though. Legitimate rampage potential from a position 5 is something nobody else can offer. Oh, and the Ags gives the Death Ward true strikes, so keep that in mind against PA. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna enjoy playing Witch Doctor even more. The in-game guide is linked in the description. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of our next videos. Appreciate all your feedback as always, and I'll see y'all in the next one.